Harvest Bank is a proud sponsor for today's Fresco L podcast.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Fresco El Podcast. I'm Luis Padilla, and today's guest is someone who represents what's possible for our community. She has built a long, successful career in corporate America, grew into leadership roles, and did it all by standing grounded to who she is. She is Senior Manager for Employee Culture and Engagement with T-Mobile and has worked with them for more than 27 years. Her story is a reminder that discipline, vision, and consistency are the foundation for long-term success. I'm excited to dive into her journey, her mindset, and all the lessons that she has learned along the way. Flower, welcome to Fresco Podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. For a long-time listener, to be here with you is an honor. So thank you for including me in this podcast.
No, yeah, it's been you've been in the list, and I know you're very busy, so I appreciate that you taking the time to visit us today.
I will always make time for you, Luis.
No, thank you. But yeah, I'm very we've been working together in many projects with the chamber and knowing each other for many years, but for people that don't know Flower, tell us a little bit more about like who is Flower, where you come from, how was you growing up and your family.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I've done speeches before where I've talked about my story. But this one's different, and I think it's because it's you, right? So I think I'm going to be a little vulnerable, and I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Mexico, Ciudad Reynosa, Tamaulipas, right across the border from McAllen, Texas. I was adopted. My parents were incredible. We didn't have much, but I had it all, right? I mean, I had their love, and I have a brother who I adore, and he's always had my back. So when I turned 15, right, I had just turned 15, my quinceañera, man, was great, all that good stuff, right? My parents, they were very humble. They didn't have much, but they always make sure that my brother and I had what we needed, and that we were happy, right? And that was always so special to me. But my dad had already moved to the U.S., and when I finished school, I had just turned 15, my mom said, okay, we're moving. We're going to move to Dallas. We're going to go, with your dad, and we're going to have a better life. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm leaving my friends behind, school, right? I love going to school. So I was so nervous about it too, right? Going to a very different place. And we got, to Dallas, where my dad was. We didn't have anything other than our clothes because we got a visa to just to visit. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't really bring anything. Like, you have to leave everything behind, right? It's like you get a new identity and you move and you start over. Right. It was probably the best thing that our parents could have done for us. It wasn't easy. My dad, they worked in the restaurant business for a very long time, and they worked really hard for us to be able to have what we needed. And I remember coming into the U.S. and seeing the Dallas skyline for the first time, and I thought, wow, this is cool. This is going to be great, right? And I remember that this was years ago, by the way. Obviously. But it was the most amazing experience, just being able to have my family back together, because my dad, he had been in the U.S. for so long, just going back and forth working, but they were still we were still miles away, and it was hard because I adore my dad. But anyway, so fast forward, right? We start school. We don't speak a word of English. My brother and I are 2 out of 10 students that didn't speak English. I remember the first few days being in class and just listening to the teacher talk, but no clue what they're saying, right? And so you're sitting there going, what are they saying?
Yeah, well, that happened to me, yeah.
Exactly. That feeling, right? Yep. It's a feeling of, what do you call it? It's a helplessness, because, you want to understand. So we had an amazing English teacher, and she would get there at 7 a.m, and she would teach us, outside of her scope of work, right? She would
Right.
just always teach us how to speak English. And fast forward, I probably by the 6 months in, I'm able to speak. I'm able to write. And I remember that she said, you need to take your SATs. Now, mind you, when we came in as 10th graders, not freshmen, so because of our credits from Mexico. And so I was like, all right, I'll take them. And I took them, didn't think anything of it. And it was probably about a couple of weeks before the end of the year, and I got called into the principal's office. And I was like, oh, crap, what did I do, right? Like, what did I do? And I remember her telling me that, you took your SATs, and I know you just learned how to speak English, but you scored so high on your SATs that you can literally go to the 12th grade.
Wow.
And I could also, I got a scholarship, right? And I could choose any university I wanted to go to. We'll pin on that for a minute.
Yep.
So I did. My brother hated that because he was a junior and I was a senior. He's older than me. He didn't like that at all.
Uh-huh.
So, I did that. And to be honest, I feel like, I don't know that was the best thing. And only I say that because when I became a senior, I was super young, right? I thought I knew everything, right? And we were still at that point. My parents said, they were still working really hard, like morning till evening time, like just making sure we had what we need. We weren't allowed to work in high school just so that we would focus, our energy in school. And so, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to go to school. I can pick whatever university I want. In my mind, like I had a plan, right?
Right.
Except my world crumbled my 12th year in high school because my parents separated. After being together for like 30 some years, right? Like they just couldn't live with each other. I was devastated to see them split. But nonetheless, my dad moved to Houston because we have family there. My mom, my brother, and myself stayed in Dallas because we needed to finish high school. And so, I'm like super excited that I'm going to be able to go to school. Until my mom says, well, since your dad's not here, we can afford for you to go to school. And I'm like, well, you don't have to pay for anything, right?
Right.
And she's like, no, but still, like, now I need you to get a job and help pay bills and, the whole thing. And I was crushed because I love going to school and learning. And, it was, I think, at that point where I realized I just don't want to do this. Like, I want to do something different. So I got married at the age of 17.
17?
I was married.
Okay.
I was about to turn 18.
Okay.
But I wasn't quite there yet. And my mom had to sign for me to get married. And she was not happy about it. But she said, if that's what you want to do, then okay.
She support you.
Yeah, just do it. So I did. And so I think that's where my life shifted significantly, right? Obviously, couldn't go to school at that point. My ex-husband, my husband at that time, he was my high school sweetheart. And he joined the Army. He was gone the majority of the time. We lived in Fort Benning, Georgia. So I went to Troy State University for a bit, right? Didn't finish because we came back. And so it was kind of back and forth, but he was gone most of the time. And in my mind, I'm going, gosh, this is driving me nuts because I want to do something, right? By that time, I had already gotten a job and all of that stuff. Long story short, 3 kids later, our youngest one, not even one, I decided I wanted to have a better life for myself and my kids. And so I packed his things, moved on, and it was the best thing ever, right? It was tough.
And okay, so like going a little bit back to high school times and stuff. Did you knew when you were in high school that you knew what you wanted to do? Like you wanted to go to school, to university, like what you wanted to study?
I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
I wanted to be a prosecutor.
Okay.
Right? I don't know if you know this about me, Luis, even though we've worked together for so long and see each other all the time. I am very much about rules. My ethics are like incredibly embedded into who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that came from my parents, honestly. I mean, they were hard workers, they were modest, they were humble, but it was always about doing for others in the right way. No, don't ever break the rules. Don't ever do anything that is going to put your integrity at risk. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And I know about that. I know that like most important that you have a very successful career in, like I say, in corporate America, but most important you as a person and you put the values, those values and forward and everything that you do. So I know about that, the ethics and how do you go ahead and work, with other people. But so going back, I think I'm kind of like trying to process the whole thing, because like we already went from moving from Mexico to high school to college to getting married and having 3 kids. So like so obviously moving, how was, because and this is because a lot of people that come to the podcast and including me, like we came to this country, and like you say, we didn't speak the language, and so obviously that was, I'm guessing, a shocking moment for you. But like but then you say I saw the skyline and it was exciting, and so you think that you adapt quick? Do you to coming to the US? Do you see the opportunity very fast?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'm very driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was in high school, right? You come into a very different culture. And I remember like seeing all these kids there. I mean, they were born in the US. Mm-hmm. They had their own cars. They had, the latest things and the branded clothes, right? I mean, obviously our parents couldn't really, give us all of that. They gave us what we needed and sometimes what we really wanted. But at that point, I realized that they were no different than I was. And for me, that was important. And I think that's where my drive began. Once I understood the culture that I came into, the opportunities that you have here, there was like nothing that was going to stop me from just moving forward, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember just thinking about like just going back to where I was born, right? And and how I was raised, and again, like very humble. But I remember also thinking my parents never gave up. Like they worked hard in order for us to have what we needed, right? And I think that it was something that I still carry with me. My parents both have passed, and so it's been a journey without them, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was my first experience of that cultural shock of the possibilities, right? And how it was going to be up to me to really make that change.
Right. And I wanted to ask that because obviously that is something that has helped you now, years later, to build your career. And T-Mobile, Sprint, T-Mobile, and 27 years working for the company and getting into the positions that you are. And that's the only way, right? Like going with this drive, seeing the opportunities, never giving up, wanting more for you. You already mentioned a couple times, I wanted more for my life. Yeah. And I think that's something very important, because sometimes people, we don't see the opportunities, or sometimes we see something that in front of us, it looks or seems hard. And the approach probably can be like, oh, I'm giving up, or like, this is not for me. You're right. Like, oh, I can adapt to this. So this is like, I need to learn the new language. I need to adapt to new kids, new high school, etc., etc. And then we giving up on our dreams, which in your case was the opposite. It was like, I'm gonna adapt. I'm gonna make it work, and I'm gonna keep going. But saying that, you didn't have the chance to go to college at that time. You got married, and getting married, it was a way, kind of like, because you wanted to do something else?
I wanted to move forward, right?
Okay.
I did what I didn't want, Luis. I didn't want to have to go get a job and then just work to pay bills. Right?
Yeah.
I understand where my parents were coming from, where my mom was coming from with that, right? That's what we do culturally, right? You help your parents, you help pay bills, but that's not where I wanted to go, and I think to a certain degree I always felt guilty about that. But things happen for a reason. My mom ended up moving to Houston with my dad. They reconnected, and so to me that was like the win. It's like they're back together, right? So I was happy about that. But I also would say that getting married for me was a way to move forward. So I always look at what's ahead, always. And for me, getting married, and obviously he was white, and for me I thought, wow. I can actually, have this opportunity and be exposed to different things that I'm not exposed to right now, right? And so that was kind of my rationale. That was my thinking around why getting married. And like I said, it was great because he was never around. But I had 3 beautiful children, and there's no regrets in that at all. Yeah. Right? They're my life. So.
And you mentioned something that I think is important on as a Latinos and families, everything, right? But sometimes we put our family first and over ourselves. And what you mentioned is, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but it's like sometimes we also need to think for ourselves, right? And what's best for us. And I'm telling you this because I remember, I think one of the times and for me was one time I was calling my mom and I was like, hey, I don't know if this is for me, right? Like again, winter, no English, I was like snow. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I think going back to Mexico sounds good. And being closer to my parents, my siblings and stuff. And I remember exactly the words. She say, don't worry about us. Do what's best for you. We're fine. And this is home for you. It's always going to be home. And we're going to do our lives. It's our job to do our lives and keep going. And your job is to do yours. So make sure that you make the best decision for yourself. And that in that moment, I think I realized, I was like, yes. I obviously my family is going to be my family always, but I also needed to think for what was best for me, right? Moving forward. Or in the future, I'm very similar to you. I'm always looking ahead and years from now and stuff like that. But so yeah, I think I just wanted to mention that because sometimes people for doing the right thing or what seems is the right thing at the moment, then we miss other opportunities.
100%. And I remember talking to my mom about it, right? Because I did feel guilty about not staying and helping pay bills or whatever. And she said to me, which I love my mom for saying this to me, which is, we moved here for you to have a better life, not for you to get a job, right? And I think that was impactful because I realized at that point that she really wanted me to do something with my life. And at the end of the day, I wish she was here, right, to see what I've been able to do, and my dad as well. But I think that was kind of that moment, the defining moment for me. Luis, nothing is ever easy. Nothing. No one ever hands us anything.
Right.
And as Latinos, right, we always have to work twice as hard. And been there, done that, right? But there's something about us as our culture. We're entrepreneurs, we're hard workers. We don't ask for anything. We don't promote ourselves, right? We just do it.
Right.
Oh, in the process, you help others.
Right.
And I remember just getting that from my parents. My parents didn't have much, but because we lived on the border town, there would be families that would come from other countries, or they would come from other parts of Mexico. They were wanting to cross the border and they didn't have a place to stay. They would stay at our house. It was not uncommon for my parents to take families in. They didn't have much, but they were willing to help them, right?
Right.
And I think that's where I get this urge to help, right? And to really step up.
And you are always helping. I know that. So I know that you in the different positions that you are, and especially with the Hispanic Chamber, you are always looking to how you can help others and the community in general.
Thank
you. And I'm sure your parents are very proud of you and your career and everything that you have done and keep doing, and the more that's coming ahead. Tell me, okay, let's go back to, tell me, you have 3 kids, you want something else, what happened after?
Yeah, so it's interesting because in my mind, right, as I'm planning out my future, I knew that staying married wasn't going to get me there. He didn't have the same drive that I had. And when you're not compatible in that space, it's hard. And so I said, you know what, I'm good. I was scared because I was a young mom with 3 little ones. And I was like, how am I going to make this work? And my mom said, I will come back to Dallas and move in so that you can go to work and get a job, right? Because don't worry, we got this.
Right.
And I did. At one point I had 2 jobs, Luis. I was working from morning till evening. I was doing exactly what my parents were doing to provide for me. Missed so much of my children growing up, right? I mean, it was like the first words and the first steps. I missed all of that. But then it was so interesting. There was a friend that I had, and she came to me and she said, hey, you know that Sprint is hiring, and this is how much money they pay, and they have benefits. And in my mind, all I'm thinking is benefits for my kids. I won't have to work 2 jobs, right? And the caveat to that was that it was an hour away from where I lived. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a long commute. And if you know Dallas, you know traffic.
Yep.
But I said, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. And I went. And I got the interview, and I had just got into my car, and they called me to offer me the job.
That was quick.
That was quick. But I was bilingual, and they needed bilingual, right. Representatives. And so that's kind of where I started that. But that then changed my personal life, because then I was able to provide for my kids. I was able to spend more time with them. I didn't have to work 2 jobs. And everything was going great until my mom had a massive heart attack and died. And I was devastated, right? I mean, I was 25. I needed her there to, not to help me, but to be there for me, right? And so that was, I think, probably one of the hardest things that I've experienced in my lifetime. You know, I always say that your parents are like the most important people in your world aside of your own kids, and they were definitely that for me. So when I lost my mom, it was hard, because then I thought, what am I going to do? Like, I went through this time of like just going through the motions, right? And so my dad said, I'll come and live with you so that you can continue to move up in your role, because at that time I had gotten promoted already. And I had only been there about a year. And I was like, all right. So he did. And I was glad that they both did that, because my children were exposed to them.
Right. And
even though it was short time, it was something that they enjoyed, right? Just having them around. And so anyway, so got promoted. And then, of course, the call center is closing. They no longer need it, because I was doing long distance. And long distance at that time was, I mean, it was in the past, right? We moved to PCS. And so I remember just having this, like, thinking of, like, okay, what am I going to do now? Like, Sprint, pays really well, great benefits, financially better. And then I said, okay, well, I have to get a job in corporate. If I'm ever going to do something with my life, I have to move to corporate. And I remember I got a call from one of the managers that was based here. And she said, I have a job for you in Kansas City.
Here in Kansas City?
In Kansas City,
okay.
in Overland Park.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, on campus.
And my kids, thank goodness, were still young enough that they didn't know I need a friend.
Right.
Right. They're like, yeah, we'll go with you, whatever. I mean, that's, it was not a big deal for them.
Right.
But after struggling for so long with them, right, Luis, it was the right thing to do for them, because at that point, when my kids were born, they became my priority. And so for me, we struggled financially. There were times I didn't know how I was going to feed them. There were times where they had what they needed, and it's okay if I didn't, right? It was my job to take care of them.
Provide.
Right? To provide, yeah. And that was the choice. So I moved to Overland Park, Kansas, with my 3 little ones, and started a brand new life. And yeah.
This is what year?
Gosh, I don't know.
Well, like, I mean, but
29 years
it's
ago.
okay.
I was 29. Yeah, so Kansas is home. I mean, I've been here long enough. Yeah.
But so you mentioned something else that I think is also important, because how do you so you were in the call center, but how do you get exposed, or like how do you knew about corporate? You know, like how, like, did somebody talk to you about, like, because especially like once again in our Latino community, sometimes the people in general, sometimes we don't see the opportunities more in corporate America, or growing or getting to another level, like you say, getting promoted and stuff like that. So how do you get how do you find out about that word?
There was a supervisor at the call center, and she was amazing. She was I want to say she was from Colombia, if I remember correctly. And she pulled me aside one day, and she says, I see so much in you. You really need to think about where you want to go, with your career. And she explained to me about corporate. That this was a very foreign concept to me, Luis.
Right.
I mean, back there we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers that were easily accessible. And she explained to me what corporate was. And she said, if you're really interested in growing your career, this is where you need to go. And so that's how I learned about it. Okay. But if she had not told me about it, I don't know. Things would have been different, right?
Right.
I was so intrigued by that.
And I think it's because I bet, and like you say, that was not that. Right now in the phone and computers, we can go and ask ChatGPT anything, and 3 seconds we have all the information that we need, right? But like back in the day, and also how important is the people in those positions keep helping others, right? And keep opening the doors for others. Because like you say, if she wouldn't mention something, like probably you would say, okay, well, my time is done here. Let me go to the next entry level job or something like that. Yeah. So you were so intrigued. You got and then she connects you to somebody here in Kansas City. You got the call, and you make the decision to come to Kansas City. And
I went backwards, because remember, I got promoted when I was in Dallas, and when I came here, it was data entry level.
Okay.
So I was making a little bit less, but nonetheless, I was like, I'm in corporate. Right. Now, this is my opportunity to get ahead, right? Because at that point, my goal was for my kids to go to college. Like, that was a non-negotiable. That's what it was going to be, right? And so I remember the first few days there, just really understanding and seeing the campus for the very first time. And if you've seen, which is now Aspire, it's T-Mobile campus. Back then it was Sprint, and it was a full capacity. And so I remember just being in awe. I was like, wow, this is super cool, right? Like, the possibilities are endless. Yeah. And that was my beginning there. And I remember I had a manager, and she was horrible. Like, she was horrible. But I asked her to, she gave me work, and it was honestly like I was done in half a day. And so one day I was like, hey, can I shadow you? And she's like, yeah, you can shadow me. So I started shadowing her. And then she started to give me the work that she was supposed to be doing. And then one day she says, we're going to go present to our VP. Mind you, I'm data entry level, right? Yeah. Like, I've never presented to leadership before.
Right.
And I was like, me? And she goes, yeah, you can do it. And I was like, okay. So that was my very first taste of being exposed to leadership. And I got hooked. And she ended up leaving the company about a year later. And I got moved right in because I knew everything she was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you shadow her like constantly?
Yeah.
Like, yep.
Yeah,
And
constantly.
you know, like these things, and I'm always fascinated because I always say that these things don't happen just because, right? Like, for example, you say, this manager say, hey, I see so much in you, you should explore these options, and then you went ahead and then you say, hey, can I do this? Can I shadow? What else can I do, right? Like you, and this is something that I tell other people. I think like these opportunities, and we talk about this before, is like they don't happen just because, right? Like if you didn't ask, probably would never happen. Like if you didn't have that motivation, that drive to say, hey, what else can I do? What else is there for me to learn? What else is like what else is out there?
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like, and this is something like, for example, in the internship program, and when talking with the younger generation and stuff, is like, like you have to go, right? Like, and ask, what else is there? What else? How can I help? What else can I do? Or and I think that's the way that you open doors, right? Like nothing. I don't think is somebody's gonna come and say, "Hey, you come and present with me." Like if they don't see that you wanted that. Yeah. So you would say that was definitely a career change. That was a change that was the change that changed your trajectory.
At that point. And by the way, the meeting went horrible because our numbers were just horrible. But that was not us. It was the numbers, right? We were just reporting the facts. Right. But I remember walking out of that meeting and going, I want to be there. That is where I need to be, right? And I remember I said earlier, like, nobody gives us anything. And to your point, like, we have to be able to find our voice and ask. Because if we don't ask, nobody's going to give it to you, right? We have to work hard. And culturally, I think sometimes we don't ask, right? Because we are heads down. We do what people tell us to do. Mm-hmm. And I think I realized that if I didn't advocate for myself, especially in the corporate space, and by the way, when I first started at Sprint, there wasn't such a thing as diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, it just wasn't. Right. And so the fact that I was a female and I was a person of color, it didn't make any difference. You prove yourself based on your capabilities. Mm-hmm. And so I started to move up. And I remember always taking a chance, right? Always asking for the harder project. Always asking for stretch assignments, always asking for more. And I think that's really where I started to feel like I could do more with my life, right? And then, again, just started growing. I ended up having a team of 40 people at one time. So I've led teams of 40. I've led teams of vended employees, internal employees, and it's never been about the title. It's always about what you can teach them, what you can learn, right? As a leader, what you can learn from them. Because I think people forget that too. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, like, what has been the biggest, what decisions have made the biggest difference in your career and take you to where you are now?
The decisions really, it's really taking a chance, right? You don't know what you don't know. But if you don't try it, you never know. Right. And I remember the very first job that I was offered to move up. And I literally, I had to think about it, right? Because, this was the opportunity I was hoping to get. But, you get compensated well, but you also have to put in the time. And I knew it was going to be long hours and a lot of travel. Kids were in school. But it was the way that I was going to move up. And remember, my whole goal, my kids are going to college, right? That was the goal. That was the goal. And so I remember saying to myself, you're going to have to do it, right? And that's really where I figured out that it is okay to take a risk. It is okay to take a chance. If we don't, I think that there's so much regret that comes with that. And I will tell you, I have no regrets. Because every time I've had a chance, I've taken the opportunity.
Every time that something comes, you say, okay, yes, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because I think it's like your career in corporate America in so many years, but what do you think is the skills or the mindset that you need to have in positions that you've been before and working with, or like, that help you the most to move forward?
I would say you have to be resilient. You really do. You have to have thick skin. It's nothing personal, it's business. And I always say that. Like, I know people have said that I'm corporate, so I can be very focused on process, or I can be very focused on, we got to do it this way, right? But at the end of the day, it's really truly about, what's that end state? Mm-hmm. That's what comes down to. You have to have that resilience and the drive. And honestly, the humbleness to say, I don't know everything. I need to learn that, right? And I think sometimes we forget that, is that we're life learners. Like, we don't just, you can get a master's, you can get a PhD, doesn't mean you know it all.
Right.
So you learn from people. You learn from your leaders, from your mentors, from your own employees. Right. And I think that's what's always helped me, is I've had incredible leaders around me. They saw something in me I didn't see in myself. But also just the fact that I know, right, that I need to grow in that space. And I always say this, I hire people that are smarter than me.
Yeah.
I do, because I want to learn something from them, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's my mark I'm leaving behind as a leader, right?
Right. And that is something that, like so many leaders and people in businesses and corporate America mention, like always, you need to be, as a leader, you need to be open to learn. Mm-hmm. You need to be open to feedback. You need to, there's a difference between being a boss and a leader, right?
That's right.
So if you're going to lead by the example, if you're going to build a team that everybody push forward, or you're just going to be in the front, but maybe it's not going to move very fast, or very quick, or very forward. Yeah. So how important is to build a team around you, and like you say, some people that is smarter or know different things than you, but you all complement each other, right? Yeah. And also, and this is, like you say, business is nothing personal, and I can imagine being in a company that has changed so much from being a sprint, being it was
Sprint and then T-Mobile,
right? Merged into T-Mobile. That all the changes and everything that has been throughout the company, and how the industry has changed, and being still there in a position of leadership. And how do you approach leadership, or how would you say that you navigate all these changes and the career?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, right, understanding that there's still a lot to do, and there's still a lot to learn, like I mentioned earlier. But I think it's also the ability to adjust, right, to embrace change. Because what some people don't understand is that when you're in the corporate space, things change by the minute at times. And it's crazy, right? In my world, my life changes every single day. But you have to adjust to change. You have to be open to change. And you have to continue to think about the future. Like, how do you move your team forward? And I want to go back to leading. You said it just right. Like, a leader should not be at the front. A leader should be in the back. I spotlight my employees. I want my team to get the credit. I don't need the credit. They need the credit. They need the exposure, right? Mm-hmm. And I've always led that way. It's even to today, right, with my team. They need to be front and center.
Yeah. How big is your team? Oh, like
right now I have a small team.
But tell us what you do now, like, so people can understand like your position at.
Well, so we skipped a ton in my career, which is probably a good thing. But right now, so when merger happened, I was the director, chief of staff, actually, for our CHRO.
Okay.
And by that time, Luisa had done chief of staff role probably for 11 years at that point through different leaders. Mind you, I always reported to C-suite, right? And that gave me opportunities that were unbelievable. Like, I traveled the world with them. I traveled in private, the private planes. I did everything that you were supposed to do as their chief of staff. And I was an executive at that point. That was my goal, to get there, right? And then something happened. I ended up meeting the most amazing leader in the world, and I'm not even saying this because she really truly is. I was leading the employee resource groups at Sprint. That was part of one of my roles, right? And I got asked to work on the integration of Sprint and T-Mobile. And so I met my current leader through that process, and her team, all they focused on was diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was so fascinated by that, because what I learned is through that you elevate people, right? You help people that are not necessarily, that they don't have the equal access like everyone else does. And that's my passion. That's what I wanted to do. And I remember getting asked, where do you want to go now? Right? Because it was a brand new company. And I said, I want to go there. And I went there, right? I remember April 1st of 2020. We had just shut down because of pandemic. April 1st, it was our very first day as T-Mobile employees. And it was the very first day I started a journey for the last 5 years that has been incredible. And I really, truly mean this when I say this. I've had all kinds of roles, all kinds of leaders, all kinds of responsibilities, large, teams, small teams, you name it. I think for me, this has been the most fulfilling role I've ever had. And I think part of it is because it connects me back to my community, right? It connects me back to who I am and my roots. Right. And so what I do now, that was your question, is I have different roles within my own scope of work. But the main work that our team does is really support our employee population. We want to make sure that everyone feels safe, that everybody feels like they belong, regardless of their background, their ethnicity, their gender preference. It does not matter. It's giving everyone equal access. And so this year's been tough. I'm not going to lie, in this space.
For everyone.
Yes, it has.
Well, yes.
But that's what I do now. I have a small team of 3. I have accessibility under me, which is incredible because people don't think about accessibility much. But we want to make sure everyone has access. And then I have operations, I have governance, I have risk assessment. I mean, you name it, right? That's kind of the scope of work I do now. And I love it. For me, stepping back from a director, right, and I knew that change would happen. I actually was okay with that because, one, I was tired of traveling. I didn't want to do that anymore, right?
Well, you still travel a lot.
I do.
You still,
But I'm not going to the Philippines every quarter, right? Okay. Or Japan. And so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now you kind of part of you now that person, that manager that tell you, hey, you should look at this option, you should look at this career, or for other people, obviously in a bigger scale, but you get to help others to shine. to find their career path.
I like to think that. I do have a lot of employees that will seek me out for mentorship, which I feel very honored that they want me to, to mentor them. But I think it's because people know, right? Like, you have a personal brand. And I don't think you and I have ever talked about that. But to me, personal brand is very important. Mm-hmm. And it's not about the spotlight. It's not about showing up to an event and getting your picture taken and just saying I was there, right? It's about what do you do behind that? How do you support it? How do you lean in to make sure that you're supporting, right?
Right.
And so, in at my job, right, it's the same thing. It's you have a presence. You have, as a leader, you have a shadow that you cast. You have to know, right, what you're doing and what that brand looks like. Because if you don't, you're going to have blind spots.
Right.
And we all have them. I'm not perfect.
Yeah, we all have them, but I think it's you're right, spot on, like personal branding and it's more about because right now, it's personal branding is a big topic about like you say, the spotlight and all these things that you do on social media and stuff, but it's more about, I think personally, is the values, the real reasons behind what you do and why, right? The why. And also I think it's Jeff Bezos that says branding is what people say about your brand when you're not in the room.
That's right.
And so yeah, that's that, like that, leading by the example. And you mentioned mentorship, and I think and if you hear the podcast, I talk about mentorship and mentors. And for you, what is a mentor? Because I like to see the different, everybody has a different perspective, but to me it's important to for whoever is listening or watching this, is to understand that mentorship comes in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like I always say, it's not just a formal one-on-one meeting.
Right.
But what would you say is a mentor? Who can be a mentor, and why is mentorship important?
Arvest Bank believes in the power of serving others. That's why we're committed to working with those who serve our communities, from the ones caring for us every day to those shaping our tomorrows, the ones dreaming big dreams, celebrating their unique cultures, and discovering the power of financial freedom. Arvest believes that all communities deserve a financial partner who cares. Arvest Bank, we believe.
Gosh, it's so important. Honestly, I remember in my career and throughout my career, right? I've had leaders that have been my mentor. And it's interesting because some people say your leader can't be your mentor, and I would disagree with that. I think that if you have a relationship of trust with your leader, they can be your mentor, right? Mm-hmm. Because they are going to guide you and they're going to give you opportunities that you need. So that's one type of mentorship, right? Is your leader believing in you and stretching you and also giving you guidance to say, hey, have you thought about this, right? Personally, I also feel like there are different types of mentors when it comes to if you need advice, if you need to say, hey, I was thinking about this. What do you think, right? Those are types of mentorships that are the most important. And that could be your husband, my husband. I will say, hey, what do you think, right? Carlos Gomez,
yep.
An incredible, incredible mentor. And so they come in different ways. And I think that's sometimes what we need to understand is the mentorship can come in a lot of different ways, and you don't even know that this person's mentoring you.
Right.
It's just so organic, right? It's part of our growth. And if we don't actually have a mentor, you're missing out, right? You have to have someone that helps you understand what is happening with you and where you can go next. I remember having a mentor that was also my leader. She was also one of my favorite people in the world. I worked for her for many years. She's one of my best friends now. She's retired. But I remember one day she said to me, you have to advocate for you. You have to speak up for you. And you always have to negotiate your salary. And I was like, what? Is that a thing? And she's like, yes, that's a thing. And so I learned earlier in my career, right, that you always should negotiate your salary.
That is a very good advice.
Yeah, it was. But she taught me, right, that mentorship can be just having a conversation with someone, and they highlight things for you about yourself, about your future that you haven't thought about. It's important to have people like that. But you touched on something that is very accurate, which is those mentors who speak up for you when you're not in the room. And those are the best mentors, right? Because that means that, tying it back to, your growth and your learning throughout that journey, right? So it's important to have that, to have someone that advocates for you.
Yes. And I think also like, for me, mentorship, like, obviously is very important. I see it, obviously 10 years ago, I didn't see as like, oh, I have a mentor, right? Like, oh, I have but to me it was like you say, like some friends, some, early in my career, a manager, like he was a very good mentor, even though he was now we good friends. And then we laugh about it because I was like, I always look up to you. And he's like, man, I was like 26. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing either. But obviously he had 3, 4, 5 years more of experience than me. So I would say, hey, what would you do about this? Or what would you do about this? And so it's always looking people that is ahead of you, right? Or like people that already walked that path and learn from the experience. And like you say early on in the conversation, like you thought that you knew everything at 15 years old, right? And
yes.
and sometimes we think that we know, and we don't get open, or we don't open our opinions, or we're not open to other opinions or to learn from others. And I think I think it's very important, like you said, like just talk to people. It doesn't have to be very formal or very like a letter or an email. Sometimes it's just call and you say Carlos, and everybody knows that I call Carlos all the time too. And I'm just like, hey Carlos, this and that, what do you think, right? Like, because he has a lot of experience. So it's like sometimes it's easier than figure out things by yourself.
Yeah.
And going against the wall, right? So and I think you like and also for younger generation, taking advantage of having people like you that is open to help, and that is is very successful and respectful in the community, that is open to help others. So taking advantage of that. So looking back your career, because I know that I want to talk about traveling and other things, and but we can be here hours and hours. But looking back at your career and all these years, what are you most proud about?
Wow, that's a good question. The younger me would have said my career, my title, right, my level. Not sure that that's now what I see being what I'm most proud of. I think what I'm most proud of is just being able to leave this mark behind, a legacy behind, and inspiring others. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And by the way, we all have the drive. We just have to find it.
Right.
I think maybe what I'm most proud of is just being able to be there still after 27 years and experiencing all kinds of changes in the telecommunications space, right? Yeah. And people say, wow, you've been there a long time. Yeah, I have. But it's never been in the same role with the same leader. It has always been a new experience, and it's going to continue to be that, right? Because that's how I'm going to grow.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure success has changed, right? Like what success means, like you say, like in younger careers to now, and probably a few years from now, it's going to be also different. And how important is not sometimes like we get too focused on just the success that is like the money, the position, the power, but how we need to think about like what success looks like, or what in the way to get to those positions, what other things you need to do and look at it, and helping others, opening the doors for others, leaving a legacy behind, making sure that obviously you've been doing something really, really good to be there for so many years. And sometimes, some people will understand, but some other people don't understand or won't understand how difficult it is to be in corporate America for so many years. And that industry and a company that disappeared and merged with another major company. So, it's and we can talk about that for
another episode.
It's another episode, but
yeah.
And having different CEOs and all those changes, right? So it is impressive. And
I see it as a great opportunity. One of the biggest things, and if we go back a little bit about, starting in Sprint, that was the best decision I could have ever made, because I don't know that I could have been able to provide for my children the way I have, right? And that's where I met Vance too. He's an incredible human being, and so my biggest cheerleader. He's so supportive, but that all happened through my 27 years. That's how I met Carlos, by the way. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, I met Carlos, like 15 years ago. No, well, actually maybe 14 or so years ago. Right?
Okay.
I met him through Sprint. And I've known him all this time in different ways, different capacities. He's always been so supportive of me. I remember getting an award from Latina Style magazine, and he went with me to DC, and that meant the world to me. Yeah. Right? I don't have parents that can go with me, right? But the fact that he made the time to go, that meant so much, and that was years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that you appreciate the most, right? Is those people that come into your life and they're there for you, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Right. Yeah. And definitely Carlos is one of those. He has been in so many ceremonies for me too that I'm like, you don't have to be there. I was just telling you, but but he's like, no, I want to be there. But so yeah. And you say so how you balance between your personal life and professional life, and because we know it is hard, and we know and especially at these positions where you mentioned you have to understand the time commitment. It's not just the title and you get into a bigger office and you're gonna work less. No, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
But how do you find this balance?
Whew. That's a good one. I will say that probably when when the merger happened, one of the biggest things I wanted to do, Luis, was to be able to do more for the community, to get more engaged in the community. Because before, honestly, I just couldn't do it. Like, I was working, 11, 12-hour shifts, and you just can't, possibly do any more than that. And I remember with that change, also, by that point, empty nesters. Mm-hmm. That was the best thing ever, right? It was hard at first, but then you get used to it very quickly, by the way. But at that point, I was like, I found myself with time. And I'm like, wow, I can actually do what I want to do. And that's how I began to get involved with the chamber. I actually joined the board January 2020. Because I knew that from that point forward, I was going to be able to do something that was meaningful to me, that was going to be able to elevate others. Because my whole purpose is that we elevate our community. Yep. I'm very proud of who I am. I've not forgotten where I came from, right? It hurts to see our community go through what they're going through right now. And all I can do is do my best to make sure that we continue to elevate. Not just the chamber, but the community. So now, it's kind of funny, but I work I do my shift, my long day at the office, and then I go home, and then I jump right back into chamber work.
Your second job, we were talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about that until
part time.
11 o'clock at night, but there are things that need to happen.
Right.
And when I make a commitment to do something, the goal is always to leave it better than I found it, right? And that's my hope. That I leave the chamber and the community in a better space.
Well, you're doing it.
Just because we're growing, right, together. Right. So
you're doing it, and I was mentioned to people, I was like, hey, Flower, is incredible to have Flower in the chamber because you bring definitely another mindset, another more structure, all these processes and workflows and stuff. And I'm sure that Carlos appreciate all your help and everybody in the board and members. Like we've seen that hard work that you've done. And last year with the national convention being in Kansas City, I saw that you were, it was another full-time job for you. So for you and other members, but like you say, things need to happen, and you through all the work and I mean, it's volunteer work. To all the volunteer work that you're doing with the chamber, definitely you helping uplifting the community, and it has an effect on so many other, like myself as a small business owner and other people around the chamber that we all appreciate it.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. It really does. No. I will say too, I'm very fortunate to have a husband who's very supportive.
Yes.
He's always there for me. He rolls up his sleeves and volunteers too. Sometimes I'll say you don't have a choice, but for the most part, it's just him wanting to be there and be supportive.
Right.
He never wants the spotlight. He just wants to be there for me, and I think for me that means a lot.
Yeah.
So he's very supportive. I'm very fortunate in that area. He also knows my commitment and the hours that I spend, working on chamber stuff, but he knows it's meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that makes me the happiest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I like seeing him in all the events, and he's all, like you say, he's always there supporting, and like you say, the importance is another topic, right? But like having the right partner or the right couple, and the husband, wife, to support you and understand your career and understand your commitments and all that, but. He's always there at all the events, and we always have great conversations. And then he tells me about all the traveling that you do. So, and I know you like travel a lot. So how did that? When did you say, hey, what was your first trip that changed basically or inspired this traveling?
Yeah, the very first trip I had was going to the Philippines.
Okay.
Through my work.
Through work.
Yeah, and I realized, wow, there's a whole world out there. Right, like I've been to Mexico and I've been to the U.S. Right. That was it. And I remember just the whole experience being unreal. And then, of course, you have kids in high school, you can't, right? You got to pay for college. And 1 year we had 3 kids in college. That was a whole different story. But that's really where I began to have this desire to travel. And of course, the more I travel for work, the more I realize, gosh, I want to do this, but I want to do it for fun. Because one of the things that people don't realize is that you go to a lot of different places for work, but you never have time to do anything.
Right.
Like you're lucky if you get out of the hotel and go for a walk or go grab dinner, right? It's go the whole entire time.
Right.
And so I wanted to see more. And Vance loves to travel. Like that was something that I loved about him, is like he just had this desire to go places. And so when the merger happened, my role changed, as I mentioned, and I had more time. And so we talked to the kids, and we're like, we're gonna spend your inheritance. We're gonna travel the world. And they're like, do it, go for it, right? The funny story about COVID is we were obviously the 2 of us. Our youngest one couldn't even come over, right? At that time, he was still in high school, and younger, he was just starting high school. And we were afraid to get him sick, and the grandkids, we couldn't see them, and our kids, and that was really hard. And I remember my sister died through COVID. And that was just hard for me. I had an aunt that passed away. It was just all happening at the same time. New job, new boss, new career, lockdown. And Vince and I had talked about getting a dog. And so we started to look at dogs. And we found one in Tennessee. And it's COVID. And so we had to make the decision, like, do we fly there? Do we drive there? And we were like, you know what? We're just going to fly. We got on a plane. Probably not the safest thing to do. But we did. And we got Bruno, and he's our world. Now you know that. Yep. But that's kind of where we began to say, you know what? We need to travel more. And so we went to Dominican Republic that year. We went to Jamaica. We went to Cancun. And the kids were like, you don't need to be traveling. Like, you're in that category. Okay, that makes me feel old. But I remember, like, they got mad at us. They were like, you can't travel. You got to stay home. Like, you have to be still. And we're like, no, there's so many places to go right. See, right? And so that's really where we began, 2020. It was. I had more time, and we just began traveling. And we have a map, and we pin every place we go to. And our goal is to pin it all. So
really,
at some point,
204 countries, 209 countries.
It's probably not going to happen, Luis, because we're giving it a shot.
You are. And I love talking to Vince about like the travels and the different cities that you visit and countries and stuff. And I like to travel too. And like
yes, you
I always I like these conversations with you both, and kind of like say I like this, I didn't like this, and but what would you say so far? What has been your favorite?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
It's funny because to me, Prague was probably one of the coolest places we visited. There are places, for Vince and I have this rule that we don't travel to the same place unless we really love it. And so, because there's so many other places, right? Like, why would you want to go back? But there are two countries that I would say are probably our favorite that we have gone back, and one of them that we want to go back to, and one of them is Costa Rica. Love Costa Rica. Absolutely love Costa Rica. And the other one is France. But you know that we've been to France. I think at one point we missed each other, right?
Yep.
But those are the two places that I would say are probably my favorites. Just because it just feels right. And yeah, we've seen a lot of other countries in a lot of different cities. But would I say I want to go back to every single one of those? No.
Yeah. No. Same. I think it happens. Yeah. I'm the same way, right? I always want to go to another one, a different one that I haven't explored yet. Yeah. And there's definitely some that I would say, yeah, go back. And I've been back. But then there's other ones. And I was telling Vince recently, like... Indonesia, I went to Bali, and I was like, you know what? It's all Instagram beautiful, but it's not that beautiful once you get there. But yeah, and when I talk about traveling, I talk about a little bit more deeper than just traveling to see and take pictures with landmarks and stuff, right? Like I'm guessing, and I'm sure in your personal experience, traveling has opened your eyes, have opened your approach to different things. And you mentioned the first time that you went to the Philippines.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was a cultural shock, but then you were like, like exploring different cultures. How traveling has changed that perspective, but also how do you apply that to your current role and to what you do?
You're asking great questions, Liz. Seriously. So what's interesting about the Philippines, it was a culture shock. What I realized traveling there is how fortunate we are, right? How fortunate we are to live in a country that gives you possibilities and gives you the ability, right, to do something with your life. When I was in the Philippines, I remember... we would, the drivers would pick us up from the hotel, take us to where we needed to go. And as you're driving, you're stuck in traffic because traffic is horrible there. And you have families that live under bridges, full families, little ones that are getting, bathe right there because they don't have homes. They don't have anything. And it's so unreal to see that, right? And yeah, we have, similar homelessness in some areas in the U.S., so it's not unique. But it does hurt because they don't have the possibilities that we have here, right? And so I remember the first time I saw that, I realized how fortunate we are. And so that has also played a lot into me wanting to make sure that we support our community, right? Because I don't want us to be in a position where we are disadvantaged. To me, equality is very important. I always want to be equal. We're all the same.
Right.
And so that, I think, had a lot to do with me wanting to do more. And then, of course, Vince and I, when we travel, we like to understand the culture. It's not about, to your point, like Instagram photos. Those are great. That happens.
Right.
But it's really, truly understanding where you're going, their culture, understanding where you're going to stay. And Vince has a thing where he books like boutique hotels every time we travel. I think he's probably shared that with you.
Yeah.
And there are some hotels I walk in and I'm like, yep, no, I can't stay here. And so he has to quickly find another place. But for the most part, we do that because that's how you really, understand the
Right.
culture and what's around you.
Right.
So,
Put yourself in the place to understand like you said, the culture and the city or the country or the place where you at. Because I think that and obviously like with the role that you have right now, where is like making sure that people feel part of it and comfortable and uplift their careers and their lives and stuff. I mean, traveling gives you or helps you understand and see the big picture, right? Like and traveling, yes, like I agree with that. It's more about like understanding the culture, understanding the past, the history, the why of many things, right? Like sometimes we just make assumptions or say this and that, but we don't really understand why and how. So and like you say, just seeing how fortunate we are and where we are and all the opportunities that we have and others in other countries and we can mention, we don't have to go around the world, but in Mexico and any other countries. But when I was gonna say when you travel, but you already mentioned it, it's more about the culture and the food and understanding. But I think we have, I'm looking at the clock right now, we have like 10 minutes left. Yeah, Jose. So I don't want to keep going on traveling, but you say Costa Rica and France. And so how do you help, or what practice or habits you have to stay balanced or to keep energized? Because traveling is also tiring.
It is.
So I know that you go a lot on vacations and stuff, but also it's like, and we were talking about off record, like how you just went to Europe, but at the same time you were tired of traveling, and so how do you get energized and keep that drive going?
That's a great question because I do get tired. Like we are going from place to place because if you know Vance has an itinerary and I will tell you, I love that. I don't make decisions when we travel because I make decisions at work all day long, so I don't want to do it there. But he will always keep us busy. But he also understands like the things I like. Right. I love shopping, so he always finds a place for us to go shop, or for us to go and just relax for a day. So that helps me kind of keep up with that 10, 12 day vacation that we're going on because again, we're moving. It's not like you're static. You're going from place to place, and that does get tiring. Yeah. But I think that helps, and it also then it kind of reminds me like what I need to go back to, right? I have a responsibility to work. I have a responsibility to the chamber, to my family, to Bruno, our dog. And so those are kind of the things that motivate you. And I do come back with a very different perspective, and I'm ready to go 100 miles an hour again, right? Just because I've had that mental break. But yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah.
And Yeah, I think like you said, like so when you not traveling, what else you do? What's another hobby that you have?
Chamber. No.
That's your favorite one?
No, I'm kidding. It is my favorite one. But no, I would say my family. My children, our children, right? We have 4, 3 grandchildren. And that is my favorite part of what I do. It's just being a GG. Being with them, we go to their games. Our grandson plays sports pretty much all year round, so we go to a lot of those games, and that's really important to me. And I always say this to Carlos: the grandkids always come first. Period. I don't care what's going on in the community, what event is happening. If it's something with the grandkids, they are always going to be my priority.
Used to send Carlos the schedule of the game, so he doesn't have galas or parties or events on the same days. So
yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
But okay, and getting to the end of this episode, I know you're very busy, and I appreciate your time. You know, I know that you're in vacation and taking a break, but you know, going back a little bit to your career, and you mentioned something that I think is very important and sometimes misunderstood, because people will say, oh, you know, like this person is not in the community anymore, or this person is disconnected, or this person is doesn't go to events and stuff like that, or but you know, like what you say right now, like I think it makes a lot of sense. Like it's like you are in the community, or you connect with the community, but then as your role gets bigger, or your responsibilities get bigger, then sometimes finding the time is hard, right? But it is important, because I've seen it both ways, right? I've seen people where after that they don't really connect anymore, or they don't come back and reconnect. But then, for example, in your case, I'm not saying that you were not connected. I'm just saying, like, as your role got bigger and bigger, your responsibilities, your family and everything, but then you always have this connection, right? And now more than ever, I think. And but what do you say that sometimes that happens to especially Latinos and corporate, where like sometimes we don't see that many really involved? I don't know if that makes sense. I went around too many things, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like
I think I get it. Yeah. I think we have to be intentional, right, and find the time, because we can have 100 excuses, Luis, as to why we're not involved, why we're not connected. But the reality is if you really want to do it, you'll make the time, right? I make the time. I'm intentional with that. I also sometimes feel that what you do to support the community doesn't always have to be you being at an event. Right. And there are times I'll tell Carlos, I'm not going to this ribbon cutting because I got to work on this for the chamber, right? Especially once we get ready for gala. It doesn't mean I'm not doing something. It just means I'm just not front and center, and that's okay, right? Sometimes we need to just step back and do it. But I think if people really are interested in getting involved, they're going to find the time. They have to be intentional to do it.
And I mean not only people in corporate. I mean business owners and anybody, right? Like anybody. It's just like sometimes we see. And I see both ways, right? Like people sometimes they say, oh, their business is successful, whatever, and they're not involved, or they're just. But sometimes people, their responsibilities kept growing and growing, and other times we don't know, right? Like we don't know if they're involved in another way, so behind the scenes or stuff like that. So for young Latinos trying to, you know, or young Latinos that are trying to get into corporate America or building a career, what would you say that is your some advice that you will give them?
I would say, like, just give it a shot. Try it, right? Don't give up. Stretch yourself. You're always going to learn something. I would also say advocate for yourself, especially Hispanic Latinos, right? We got to be able to talk about who we are. And it doesn't mean you're a walking resume either. But it does mean that you can highlight your capabilities and your skill sets and your achievements, right? And I think that that's important for the new generation to know, is that you have to I don't want to say you have to work hard, because that's not necessarily the right thing. You just have to be smart, and you have to give it a shot. Like, take the chance. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Take the leap.
Take the lead. And then I think you mentioned something that I think is very important. Is like, and you mentioned early on too, that sometimes as a community we don't take the time, or we don't take the time to say, hey, I've been doing this and this is good, and I've been, like all the great work that we do and promote ourselves.
Yeah.
Because sometimes either we don't have the time, we just keep going to the next thing, and we forget about promoting ourselves. And but also I think it's more a cultural thing, right?
Yes.
Like it is like we don't find it necessary, or we afraid of what people's gonna think, or I'm bragging, or like I shouldn't say this, I should stay more quiet, I should just keep doing my work and keep going. But I think in business and community and leadership, corporate, nobody's gonna come and say, hey, like here is for you. Like if you don't advocate for yourself, if you don't promote yourself, I mean, I see on business, right? Like I go out there and I say, hey, we've been doing this, or like I try to knock on doors, or like and I think it's the same. Of what you're saying, like sometimes we forget about promoting ourselves. And I tell so many non-for-profits, businesses and stuff, I'm like, hey, you've been doing great things for years, but maybe not a lot of people know about it, right?
It's true, though. But I will say, I'm preaching here, because I usually say that, like, you promote yourself, elevate yourself, like talk about your achievements, talk about who you are, what you've done. I don't like to do that for me. I just don't.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I don't, I don't name awards I've received. Even at work, you asked me about what was probably my proudest moment, and I could have said, which I am very proud of, is I actually got a peak recognition, and that's only 1.5% of the employees get recognized with that.
Wow. Congrats.
Thank you. That was last year.
Yes. Is that you went to Hawaii?
To Maui, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Full week with my spouse, and got to hang out with our CEO and all of that. But yeah, that was amazing, right? But not many people know about it, because I don't talk about it. Like I don't think it's relevant, right? Mm-hmm. People are going to. I have to gain people's respect. I don't have to show off for them to respect me, right? And I think I'm a huge believer in that. I'm very authentic with who I am. Like, what you see is what you get.
Right.
Not everybody likes me, and that's okay.
Yeah. But that's another way. Like, I really connect with that, because I think that's another way. Like when we say, and there's a tiny line, right, between promoting yourself, bragging, or show up. Yeah. I think it's that, like you say, being authentic. People recognize, right? People can see things. Like people know. But like you say, it's not about the words. It's not about this. But obviously, they're in the personal level. I'm sure. I mean, in 1% in the company, this is very impressive, and it's huge. But at the same time, it's promoting. I'm sure internally, you know where to promote yourself, you know how to promote yourself, and your work promotes you, right? Like it speaks for itself. But yeah, I think it's just learning how to navigate that, right? And learning how to, like, it is good if we're doing good things. And I always say this, right? If we're doing good things, we need to tell about it.
Yes.
We're going to talk about it, because it takes the same effort, if not more. It takes less, sometimes we do bigger, greater things with less resources. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so and just at the end result, we need to tell about it, right? Like it's just like, hey, look, we did this. It's helping this or that, or it's doing this and that, and just find a balance of how we promote ourselves, how we promote our work, how we promote others, and making sure that the people see us, right?
100%. There's also a component of being humble.
Right.
I know, and you are incredible at this, right? You get accolades, you get recognition, and big ones too. But you're so humble. And I think that's what makes it special. It's when you get recognized, right? It's not about the recognition. It's about your character and how, right, you act when you get that recognition. It's humbling, right? As long as we know that this is amazing, this is great, personally, wow, I'm screaming inside.
Right.
But there's also, we have to learn to be humble.
Right.
And I think for me, that's very important. I'm not going to walk around telling people what I do, right? Like, or what I got. It's not me.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think, and I appreciate your words, but I think also it's like, I guess you and I were at the same ways. Like I'm always thinking like, what's next?
Yes.
What's
next?
Like I'm already thinking
Yes.
of like you say, screaming inside, but I'm also excited to see what's next, or like what else we can do, how we can make it better and bigger, right? That always makes me more excited than the recognition at the moment.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I see every day as like a new opportunity.
Right.
Right. And there are days I don't want to get out of bed. I'm not going to lie. But, it's something that we have ahead of us, and how we really take advantage of that. Right. Live every moment. My biggest accomplishment is our children. And to me, that's the most important thing. And this is going to be funny. I don't think our children realize what I do. And I think I've tried to explain that. I'm not sure that they quite get it. They know that I do, a lot of chamber stuff, that I'm the chair of the board, all of that
Right.
stuff. But I don't know that they understand the true meaning behind that, right?
Right.
And that's okay. I think one day they'll understand it, right?
Well, they'll see the impact.
Yeah, well, they'll see it, hopefully.
Yeah, they
Living
will.
a better world for them.
They will.
Yeah.
So, what's and this question is like, what's next? What do you think? What do you want to accomplish in the next 5? I'm not gonna say 10 years, but let's say 5. What is there that you still like? Okay, this is my goal. This is my.
So I have always had this plan, because us, we think ahead.
Yep.
I always said that when I turn 60, I'm going to leave corporate.
Okay.
And believe it or not, that's 6 years from now.
Good.
And it doesn't mean I'm retiring. It just
Right.
means I don't want to be tied to a calendar. I don't want to be tied to meetings, right? I want to be able to do nonprofit. I want to do more. And I think being on the board the last couple of years, or 5 years, I guess now, it really highlights the need that we have as a community.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my plan. That means more community work and more travel. That's exactly what that means.
That's
I think it's important for us to also understand, right, where we want to be in a certain amount of time. And for me, I would be 33 years, I believe, with the company, if I last that long still, right? If I'm still there.
Yep.
But that is a long journey. And at that point, I'll be ready to do something more meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's
It's not about the title anymore. It
right.
really, truly isn't.
Yeah.
It's about, how you go to sleep at night and how you feel about it. So,
Yeah. Well, it's very powerful, because that's like I think in this hour we could see how things change,
yeah.
for the good and for the better, but how things like started and then now, right? And what is meaningful, and
Yeah.
at the beginning, in the middle of it, and at the end.
Yeah.
So, and the importance of have a plan. Because
Yes.
that's another topic, like that's
conversation
a
on
whole
that.
different conversation.
I'm the queen of process.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But the importance of having a plan, the importance of like building a career, and once, if it's a corporate career or if it's a business or
Sure.
whatever it is, but having a plan of what's going to happen, what I want to do, and at this moment where I want to be, and not just living every day to see what's
chance.
to
No,
chance,
I
right?
can't. Oh, that
Yep.
would drive me nuts. No, it's you're right though. It's about understanding where you want to go, and I think you made a very good point that the level of importance of things change as you change, right?
Right.
Before it was having the title, it was having the luxury car, it was having a big house. It's not, to me, reflecting back, it's not what matters to me, right? It's not. It's about how I feel. It's like spending time with my kids and my grandkids, which, by the way, my kids did go to college. They all have a degree, so I accomplished what I set out to do. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think like I've seen it, and in my younger career, but like I've seen it like how different things matter throughout the years, and the meaning behind so many things have shifted, and you find other I think more important meanings on things and projects that you do than just the ones that we will think that are money and all that kind of stuff, right?
Like friendships are important.
Friendships, exactly. People.
Yeah, people.
Yeah. Well, we get into the end of this, but if you can go back to Flower at that age where you were coming to Dallas, to United States, 15, 14 years old, if you can see her right now, what would you tell her?
Oh, I'm gonna get emotional. I would tell myself it's okay. Life is gonna be tough. There will be changes, and sometimes it's up and down, right? But just have that drive. Like, continue to drive forward. Continue to honor my parents, right? And I think that's important. But I would go back and say, would I change anything? I don't know, right? I don't regret any of it. But just the possibilities and the dreams and the drive, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's that's something very, very powerful and important that not a lot of people can say. Is like when you say, I don't regret anything and I don't change anything. And people, when I ask this question and on the podcast or off the podcast, a lot of people say, like what everything that has happened in my life has shaped who I am and where I am right now. So normally people would think that, no, I want to change this, I would change that, or why this happened to me and stuff like that. But throughout the years, you start learning and realizing that things happen for a reason, and it helps you. And if you convert those bad moments, good moments, and opportunities, and change them to be where you at and where you want to go.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And just understanding that every chance we take has a consequence, whether good or bad. So that's the other thing too.
Well, you take all the chances.
I do take chances.
So,
but
well,
anyways.
Thank you, Flower. Thank you for taking the time. This has been. I have a lot of fun. I have a great conversation with you. I wish we have more time because there were so many other topics and questions I wanted to ask, but there's always a opportunity for episode 2. So you're always welcome to come back and we can talk about more of your career, and I'm sure you're gonna accomplish all the goals and everything that you want to accomplish in your career and your personal life, and you're gonna go to all the countries that you want to see with Vince. So
hopefully.
But no, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you as a friend, as somebody that actually look up to you. I always tell Carlos and everybody in the board, hey, we need Flower, and don't let her leave. Don't let her leave the chamber, because you just bring that perspective that a lot of us we don't have, because we don't have that experience. We don't have that like that knowledge of all the years that you have in the career. So and we appreciate all the work that you do for the community.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I'm so honored that you asked me to be here, and absolutely anytime we can unpack more if you want. But it's been a great experience.
Thank you, Flower. So thank you to everybody listening or watching this episode. I'm sure you have a lot. You enjoyed this episode as much as I do, and So I invite you to keep watching. We're going to have more guests on this season 2 of Fresco el Podcast. And I appreciate everybody watching. So stay tuned for next. Thank you.
Arvest Bank is a proud sponsor for today's Fresco el Podcast.